Hey guys, it's Magister, and today I'm going to be going over the new Fault patch notes 0.3.0. So, for starters, the environment got changed a lot. There's lots of new lighting. I think there's a lot of touching up to the lanes and the jungle. I know I've seen some screenshots of mid lane that are looking pretty good. And it sounds like they optimized the game a lot, so much easier to run. They reduced the file size by about 10 gigs, and now they can push hot fixes a lot easier. Bug fixes. They fixed towers just randomly stopping attacking minions. They fixed just a bunch of random stuff. Missions, cleave damage, and wards being like in the ground, which is actually really important because a lot of the time you would have a ward on Prime Pit and you wouldn't even be able to see the enemy team attacking Prime. So that's pretty big. For heroes, Countess's Q, they made it so she can't Q through walls anymore, which I actually think is really bad for her. Countess is already kind of hard to play against a coordinated team, and especially with some of the items that are in the game right now, such as group stasis, it just makes it very difficult for her to do her job. They fixed the bug where if you blink to somebody as they recall, it sends you back to their fountain. That's obviously really good. You won't be dying to a random bug just because of unlucky timing anymore. Gideon ult, he doesn't get pushed by Murdoch while he's in his ult. That's really good. A lot of the time what would happen is the Murdoch would push him and then his ult would just be, the entire visual would be in the wrong spot. So I'm glad that's getting fixed. Greystone, I honestly haven't personally experienced this, his passive blocking more shots than it was supposed to. But I also haven't played much Greystone, and I haven't played too much against him apart from when I'm playing Countess. Okay, Chimera, they bug fixed his right click, so when he jumps to you, he doesn't go not far enough horizontally, he doesn't just go up. And then, just like Countess, if he uses his jump on someone who's recalling and they recall, it does not teleport into the fountain, so good fix there. Belica's drone, this is a really big fix. They removed it so it doesn't body block you anymore. You can walk directly through Belica drone now, which is really, really good. That was being abused a lot, and it just didn't feel very interactive at all. They also removed Belica ultimate going through walls, which also I don't like too much. I think both Countess and Belica being able to do their stuff through walls is kind of fun. But it does make a little bit more sense with Belica because she's kind of shooting you straight through a wall. So overall, I think very good changes. Murdoch ult, they just fixed some camera stuff and they fixed the reticle. Narbash, for a while, if one of your teammates had one of the buffs, red or blue, they didn't get healed by his E. So that's actually a really big bug fix. That's really good. Really good. And then Steel. This is going to make Steel way better in the support role. He couldn't place his wall in front of his teammates because then they wouldn't be able to shoot through it. So this is actually a really, really big Steel buff. Items, Radiant Poise and Nirvana Jewel. Those are the two stasis items. Radiant Poise is a group stasis and Nirvana Jewel is just for yourself. And what that means is you press it and then you become immune to damage and you're frozen in place for about 2 seconds. And you can't use any abilities or anything, but you can't be hit by anything either. So these now both drop tower aggro when you enter stasis. This is very good for tower diving, or just for like the item to feel like it works smoothly. Quantum Shift, this is the blink item. Currently I think it's a little bit underpowered. I feel like the blink doesn't really go very far, and it being out of combat only just makes it so late game it's not as rewarding as just buying a full item, and the passive or the active ability isn't as strong as something like the stealth tech, where you just press it and go invis, and you can do that mid-combat. Anyway, they fixed its cooldown not showing correctly, which actually does make it. That's a big quality of life thing for using the item. Next is War Aegis, or Warlock's Aegis. This has had a few bugs with it, such as being able to see enemies through fog walls when they have the bubble, or causing it to appear while they're in stealth. So these are both really good quality of life. And then also, Orb Prime, Bellica's E, and Murdoch's right click all correctly pop the shield, which is really, really good for Bellica when she's playing against a Countess. If the Countess has War Aegis, it will now get popped by Bellica's E when Countess blinks in, and so Bellica can hit the knockup right away. This is actually really big for that specific matchup. And then Substitution. This item is getting fixed. This item used to crash servers, and now it doesn't. So that's really good. Aspects. Queen. I wasn't even aware of this, but Queen was giving 2/3 ability vamp instead of 1/3 on AoE. In most MOBAs, when you have lifesteal on abilities, it gets cut in thirds if it's for area of effect, and I guess this just wasn't doing it correctly. Rogue fixed an issue that was not allowing the player to pass through enemy minions. That's just the item or the aspect not working. I feel like not very many people take Rogue, so I personally haven't experienced this, but I've only played with Rogue a few times. Alright, now we have the jungle rework. This is really, really important. Jungle minions they used to be 2 camps that would spawn, and then at a regular interval another camp spawned, and it would stack up to 5, and that's what's known as dynamic camps. Now we have static camps. So the jungle minions now spawn in a group of 3, and they respawn 2 minutes after they die. Jungle buffs no longer have 2 white minions next to them, but the buffs themselves are significantly stronger. And then experience in the jungle has been buffed, and gold has been nerfed. So there's a lot of things that are important about this. For starters, you can't... Previously, like, the best strategy would be to just take red buff, hit level 2, and then gank. And then you could gank a lot, and you could look to invade, and you didn't even have to clear your jungle, because it was better to wait for your camps to get stacked up anyways. But now, you have to actively clear them, otherwise you're just missing lots of farm. So this is definitely going to change the way jungle is played by a significant amount. The jungle buffs not having 2 white minions next to them, I feel like isn't that big. It's going to make clearing a little bit rougher for AoE junglers, but I can't even really think of any apart from off-meta things like Countess or maybe playing Bellica jungle. Experience increase and gold gain decreased. I think this is really good. A lot of the times junglers were hitting their first item spike before mid laners, and mid laner or even carries while having a similar amount of time. So the mid laner might be farming well, and they just are behind the jungler because of gold. Raptors are being buffed. Each raptor base health is getting increased by 320. I don't think this is that big. I think it might be important in one of the first 2 fights at Raptors, because it'll change exactly how quickly your team can burst Raptors down. But I don't think this is a very big change. I still think Raptors are too weak and give too big of a gold reward. P-Blade. So P-Blade has been being used all over. It was a very strong item, and so they're nerfing it a little bit, and mainly they're fixing its passive, because its passive does a % of current health bonus damage when you auto attack a target, and that damage used to be energy damage, which means if you're playing an ADC and you have P-Blade, you're going to hit hard with your autos for physical damage, and then you are also getting bonus energy damage based on the current health. So that's getting changed. P-Blade is getting more expensive, and then the attack speed is reduced. So that's a pretty substantial nerf to the item. War Aegis. So War Aegis has been used all over mid lane. It's very, very, very strong in a mage versus mage matchup, and it just makes it really hard to die in lane. So what it did is it gives energy power. It gives 70 energy power, 60 energy armor, and a spell shield every 30 seconds that block the next enemy ability. This is getting fixed, and now the cooldown is 60 seconds instead of 30, which is nice, but I think what needs to be changed is the shield should only refresh while out of combat with enemy champions. So like after 45 seconds of not taking damage from enemy heroes. They increased the item cost by 100 gold and gave it 4 more energy power. I still think the stats on this item are super strong, and you should be building this first or second item almost every game in a lane against another mage. Aspects. So Beast Hunter is getting changed a pretty fair amount. This is a pretty significant buff. The percent damage reduction is going from 10 to 15%. So this is obviously going to help a lot with early jungle clear. And the max stacks being changed from 40 to 120 means that this aspect is going to scale a lot better throughout early to mid game, as opposed to just helping you with your first clear and then being just a small stat bonus because. So they also are nerfing the power and health per stack by 50%, but the max stacks is getting tripled. So overall you're getting 50% more stats from this once it's fully stacked up. Titan's getting a flat nerf. Titan was very, very strong in just about any position last patch. It gave you an out of combat shield equal to a percentage of your max health, and it gives you bonus damage equal to a very small percentage of your max health. So the shield's getting nerfed from 8% to 5%. This is actually kind of significant because a lot of the time you'll pick this up against Gideon, and the damage roughly will block a full Gideon Q, but with this reduction, Gideon Q will actually get some damage through. And late game, this aspect is also going to be doing a lot less when you're running it on a tank. Templar. So Templar gives nearby allies a percentage of your max armor and energy armor. I believe it's 6%. I'll look this up really quick. It would be under here. I wonder if it's with items. Yeah, aspects. So Templar gives allies within 1600 units 6% of your armor and magic resist, and it makes 15% of mana spent and turns it into a shield for 3 seconds. So this is getting a slight buff from 1600 to 1800 range. Not really going to change when you want to pick it up, but it's nice quality of life. Warlock. Warlock is receiving a really big buff. The bonus damage, it used to give bonus damage, I believe 20% on every 5th ability, and causes hero kills to increase move speed by 15% for 3 seconds. This item, or this aspect, is now being changed, and so instead of every 5th ability, you get the 20% bonus damage on every 4th ability. And then the movement speed on kill got massively increased from 15% to 35%. I think this is a very big Warlock buff. I think you're going to want to run this almost every game on Countess, because if you use all 4 abilities on somebody, you are guaranteeing to get Warlock bonus damage. The move speed on kill is also very nice for a lot of different roles. and so Warlock might be picked up beyond just mages, but we'll have to see. Queen is just getting a stat buff. It used to give energy power every 6 minion kills, and it gave you 1 energy power, and now it gives you 1.5 energy power, so that's 50% buff. Pretty good. And a lot of the time, you just wouldn't take Queen instead of Warlock or Magician, so this is a good change. Ace. The attack range from Ace, it used to give 10% bonus attack range, and now it's 5%. That's actually pretty significant, but I still think you want to take this aspect on almost every carry, every game, because not only does it give you the bonus attack range, but it also gives you 30% bonus crit damage, which is just a massive damage increase once you start getting your crit items online. Boris. Boris is receiving some very big changes. So a lot of the time, Boris would just press Q, he'd sniff you, and he just ran you down. And a lot of this is getting changed. So his base move speed is getting reduced by 10. I believe this might make him the slowest hero with the same move speed as Murdoch, but there might be another one that's slower. Boris's Q is having a very large move speed nerf. It used to give 35 to 55%, and it now gives 20 to 36%. So that is, I mean, that's just like a flat 15 to 20% nerf. I really like that change. I think the move speed was excessive. They changed the attack speed too, so instead of going from 60 to 100%, it goes from 50 to 100%. That's keeping his late game power, but it's making the early game a little bit less oppressive. His E, Unstoppable Duration, is also getting nerfed. I really like this. I just hope there's going to be an indicator so you can tell when he's unstoppable. So Boris's E lets him collect canisters, and once he gets to a certain amount of canisters, which he gains from nearby enemies dying, minions give him just 1 or 2, and enemy heroes give him about 30. Once he gets to 100 and he uses this ability, he gains Unstoppable for a pretty long amount of time, and that's getting nerfed. So from 2 to 3.6 seconds is getting reduced from 2 to 2.8 seconds. I still think that the Unstoppable is going to do its job, but it's just less annoying to deal with now. Moving on to Belica. Belica was hitting super hard last patch, and she's receiving some massive nerfs. So her Q is losing 10% scaling, and the stun duration is getting hard nerfed. So it's just reduced by a flat 0.5 seconds across the board. It's still a very, very strong ability, and I think this is a good balance change for her Q. Her right click, though, is getting the scaling reduced from 140% to 100%. That is a massive nerf, and late game, that's going to equate to a significant amount of damage per Q. I mean, that's like, if you late game have about 700 ability power full build, each right click is doing 40% less damage, each Q is doing 10% less damage. So that's about a 350 damage nerf each time you knock someone up and then put your bomb on them. They also are nerfing her passive. I think this is a good change. Her passive feels a little bit out of place. It's just a drone zapping enemies, but it gave her a bit too much damage on her auto attacks. So instead of 25% of her energy power, it's being reduced to 15%. Next is Muriel. Muriel has definitely felt a little bit underwhelming this last patch, and so her shield is getting a pretty significant buff. So instead of giving a 150 to 310 shield on her E, it's 200 to 440. And a 50 health shield at level 1 is a very significant buff, especially when that then increases to 70, and then to 90, and then to 110, and then to 130. And this is usually the ability you want to upgrade first. I still don't know if this is going to result in Muriel getting picked over Narbash or Steel, but it's definitely a step in the right direction. Her right click, the projectile you throw out that gives an ally movement speed, The speed of the projectile is getting increased by 14%. I don't think that's going to change too much, but it's just a nice bit of quality of life. Now Narbash. Narbash has been dominant in the duo lane and easily the strongest support. His passive gives him 0.5 mana regen per 100 points of missing mana, and that's getting reduced to 0.4. This is a 20% decrease, but I still think Narbash is going to be super strong. His healing in lane is just like nothing else compares to it. The amount of sustain that you get allows you to take bad trades and still win. Then his Thunk has had a huge hitbox, and so the hitbox of it is getting reduced, almost cut in half. This is really good, both for Narbash players and for playing against Narbash, because it's easier to dodge the Thunk now, and when you are using Thunk, it won't hit a minion on accident, especially when you're trying to throw the Thunk over minions, it won't get caught. Next is Sevarog. Sevarog has been very, very, very strong, and he's receiving some nerfs, but I think they might not be enough. His ult has the cooldown increased, so it was 40 seconds at all levels, and now it's 55 seconds, 45 seconds, 35 seconds. I think this is a step in the right direction, but I don't think it's quite enough yet. His passive, that allows him to stack from killing enemies, is getting nerfed at first for the early game. So when he kills an enemy with an ability, he used to gain 1.5 max health, and at certain increments he gained bonus max health and energy power. Now this is getting reduced from 1.5 max health to 1 for each stack. However, the bonus health gained for each increment is getting increased by a lot. So overall, late game, Sev is still going to be very strong, and not very far off from where he is now. Sevarog's E, Subjugate, is a root that also slows. The slow duration is getting cut from 2.5 seconds to 1.5 seconds. I think this is a good change, but it also might not be enough. I think we're going to have to see how Sev plays, and he's probably going to need a couple more nerfs. Steel. So finally Steel's charge and dash both have very low cooldowns, and so these are getting nerfed. The right click cooldown is getting increased from 9 to 11 seconds. That's obviously a very, very big nerf, especially for early game in lane, in duo lane. When you're taking an all-in fight, those 2 seconds are very likely going to be the difference between getting a kill or maybe not. His Q, the cooldown is getting increased from 16 to 8 seconds to 16 to 10 seconds. This is just going to make him less oppressive mid-game when he's just perma-stunning you. He hits you with his right click and then his dash, and then he ults you, and then he hits you with another right click and then another dash. It just doesn't feel fun to play against. So these are some very good changes. So quick overall rundown. Lots of optimization and better animation. Some bug fixes. Countess can't blink through walls. Gideon ult doesn't get pushed by Murdoch. Greystone passive is working right. Chimera and Countess both don't teleport to the enemy fountain if they jump on someone who's recalling. Belica drone doesn't body block, and she can't ult through walls. Murdoch R is better to use. Narbash E, the healing, works on allies with buffs, and Steel's Force Shield blocks projectiles from enemies only, and no longer allies. Both the stasis items stop tower aggro. The blink item correctly has its cooldown shown. Warlock's Aegis, War Aegis, correctly gets removed by a couple abilities and doesn't show through fog walls or stealth, and Substitution doesn't crash the game. Queen was giving too much spell vamp. Rogue didn't let you pass through minions all the time. Jungle is getting big rework. Dynamic camps to static camps. And Raptors are getting a slight health buff. In terms of items, P-Blade is getting nerfed. War Aegis is getting slightly more expensive, but only slightly nerfed. Beast Hunter is getting buffed. Titan is getting nerfed, a little bit smaller shield. Templar has a little bit more range. Warlock has a pretty big buff, and Queen has a decent buff, while Ace is getting nerfed. Boris doesn't run you down as well anymore. Bellica does less damage. Muriel gives a bigger shield. Narbash gets less mana regen, and his Thunk has a smaller hitbox. Sevarog is getting slightly tweaked and nerfed, but probably not enough. And then Steel has lower cooldowns. So these were the patch notes 0.3.0. Thanks for watching.